Hey everyone, this is Keith Ellison, Minnesota Attorney General. Today I want to talk about Justice Sotomayor's dissent, which I believe is a beacon in dark times, which we have right now. Let me start with Nome versus Vasquez Perdomo, a Supreme Court ruling that affects not just law, but who we are as a nation, and especially about one justice's dissent that stands as a moral compass. It kind of starts out with this. In Nome versus Vasquez Perdomo, the Supreme Court's conservative majority stayed an injunction that had barred Immigration Customs Enforcement, ICE, in Los Angeles from making arrests based solely on factors like race, ethnicity, speaking Spanish or accented English, being found in certain locations, or working certain types of low-wage jobs. The district court found that ICE was relying on those four factors, those impermissible, racially biased factors alone in many cases, and cited the Fourth Amendment as an authority. Now, you should know that in emergency situations, a plaintiff, in this case, California, can ask for emergency relief to stop bad action from continuing, but only in emergency situations. That's what these injunctions or temporary restraining orders do. The Supreme Court permitted the government to resume those kinds of activities under that, even though no detailed majority opinion was published. The public only knows who is responsible and the full force of what's allowed to go on now because of Justice Sonia Sotomayor's dissent. So Justice Sotomayor's dissent is not just a legal disagreement. It is an act of truth-telling. She writes this: "We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job." These words cut to the heart of what's at stake here. They force us to acknowledge that policy, when unrestrained, can touch innocent lives in ways that tear the fabric of this nation. Justice Sotomayor went on, "Rather than stand idly by while our constitutional freedoms are lost, I dissent." In those few words, she reminds us that rights do not defend themselves. They depend upon someone speaking up, even when the costs are high, even when the majority is silent. Justice Sotomayor does more than just identify a legal error. She names the human toll people seize because of their appearance, language, type of work. She calls out the injustice by telling us plainly, looks Latino, speaks Spanish. Those are not abstractions. Those are people's lives. She brings moral clarity to a Supreme Court decision. The phrase, quote, "while our Constitution freedoms are lost," unquote, is chilling because it suggests that we're already losing them or letting them slip away. She doesn't wait for them to go. She challenges us not to let them go. In the face of a decision made without a full court procedure, without argument, without a signed majority opinion, she stands alone. She was joined by Justices Kagan and Jackson to preserve the idea that constitutional protections really do mean something. She does not allow marginalized people to be erased by silence or ambiguity. In this moment, when it seems like every day our freedoms and our democracy are under threat, she tells us that words have power, especially when spoken in courage. Her dissent is more than dissent. It is a warning. It is a mirror for what America promises to be. Constitutional rights depend on vigilance. The language of the law is fragile if those sworn to uphold it remain silent. Each generation must defend justice. Her dissent is an invitation, not to be mere spectators, but active participants, to ensure that rights aren't conditional on language, race, or job, or your accent, but rights must be universal. So Justice Sotomayor has raised her voice in this case with precision, force, and conviction. Her words, quote, "We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job," unquote, will echo long after this ruling unless we do more than remember them. As she says, quote, "Rather than stand idly by while our constitutional freedoms are lost, I dissent," unquote. Let us not stand idly by. Let us take her dissent as our rallying cry to speak, to organize, and defend what should never have to be defended, equal rights under the law. Thank you, Justice Sotomayor.